think the biggest challenge for me was finding good information because there's so much free information out there. And many times people will package information and say, I have the missing secret that you need. And you find that it's just rehashing what everybody else is saying.
Hi there, I'm Charly, your online business manager and WordPress expert. My goal is to assist small to medium business owners build their businesses with a focus on using the internet and online technologies in an appropriate and cost-effective manner. People hire me to take the stress out of managing their businesses and allow themselves to focus on what they do best. It's an early morning. I've only had one cup of coffee. Patrick Dawson is joining me today. Now, Patrick is a seasoned content manager at the Digital Sharecropper, where he excels at helping entrepreneurs build robust systems and processes for their online business. With a passion for bootstrapping and authenticity, Patrick firmly believes in the power of applying fundamental principles and best practices to achieve lasting success. Drawing from his own real-world experiences, he generously shares valuable tips, tools, and insights to navigate the competitive landscape, the online business world. Right, okay, so I've tripped over my tongue several times today. It's going to be that type of interview. Sorry, guys. Hi, Patrick. Thanks for joining us.
Yeah, sure. Really, glad to be here.
Really glad to have you on board. Now, you've got a couple of things to share with us, but before we start, how about you give us a helicopter view about who you are, how you came to get that wonderful bio and that wonderful intro, and then we can get into a few of the things that you'd like to share with us today.
Sure. Well, I had a background in the real estate industry, building houses, flipping houses, and also in the information space where we were selling info products, and eventually transitioned to the online real estate. And I noticed there was so much overlap. So it's building an online business versus building a physical business. They had so much in common. And a lot of the information I came across, it seemed as though they had this one-track mind of the digital realm is all that exists. And they were missing a lot of key principles from the offline world that apply to both. So I sort of been trying to carve out a niche there where I can bring what I've learned offline, online, and sort of give a more holistic approach to business. So.
Awesome. You know, I really love to hear people say that there's stuff that we've got offline, that we learn offline, that we forget to bring with us online when we come online. And that's something that I try to get my listeners to remember and to take on board. So there's a couple of things you wanted to actually talk with us about today. And one of the things you mentioned when we were discussing you being a guest on the show is Kaizen and slight edge principles. So before we get into what it is you want to share with us, could you explain to us what those are?
Yeah, they're basically two principles about slowly and incrementally improving and building upon those gains. So instead of thinking that there's one big thing that's going to move you forward, it's really this little stair steps of all these small steps that build on one another. And so if you're improving just a little bit each day or a little bit each year, you're going to get much better faster than if you're spending all that time hunting for that thing that's going to move you to the next level. And instead of moving to the next level, you're spending all that time looking for the solution instead of slowly building yourself up.
Okay, and now they are courses you can do, they're certifications you can take. Where do they come from?
The Slight Edge is actually just a book. And I actually was privileged to get a copy before it was published. And so I've known about this for quite a while. But it's just a book. It really goes over the basics of if you do something over and over every day, it will slowly build up and build you a successful life one day at a time. Likewise, if you make small mistakes or if you just take your eye off the ball a little bit each day, eventually it'll look the same for a long time, but eventually you're on the failure curve. And the Kaizen principle is, I believe it comes from somewhere in the Japanese automotive industry where instead of trying to have the next big innovation, they just tried to slowly make everything better little bit by bit. And eventually they overtook, the small automakers and they became some of the top ones.
Yeah, and I mean, if you look at how Japan has developed since the Second World War, which is really where you sort of need to, because that's when they were westernized, as much as I hate to say that, that's where they were westernized. Yeah, they now top producers in just about everything. So Okay, so I'm going to go and look those up. I'm going to look up the book you mentioned, and I will put links into the show notes on what they are and where people can find out more about them. They're certainly my way of learning things. You do it slowly, you do it incrementally, you get good at that next increment, and then you move on to the next thing. You don't try and do it all at once or try and make big steps, because you will misstep. So why don't you tell us a little bit, or share with us a little bit about the principles that you think we're missing online, that we're not bringing offline, that we're not bringing online. I think that's the way I wanted to say it, and how that comes into things like bootstrapping, because I think that's where we're going to head to next.
Sure. Yeah, I mean, they're kind of integrated. So the bootstrapping mentality, I've noticed this offline and online, whereas I think one of the things that can hold you back is actually if you have startup capital, because you're too eager, I think, to find a solution. It's almost like a problem searching for a solution or a solution searching for a problem instead of the reverse. So you're with a bootstrapping mentality, you're looking at, okay, I have all these constraints. What actually matters right now, not what might matter in the future, any of those type of things. So if you maintain the bootstrapping mentality, you're always thinking, I need to learn this first. I need to get good at it first before I start looking for something to make this easier, before I start to outsource it. And if you have that mentality of bootstrapping, you say, it doesn't matter that I have the funds to buy these things. It might be right for a larger business than mine. It might be right for me sometime in the future, or maybe it is the right solution. But you're really just analyzing everything that comes in, that, is this what I need right now? Is this the right solution? And I think it's important to maintain that mindset throughout our businesses, so we're not just seeing some new flashy piece of technology or some innovation and we think that's going to move us forward.
Look, honestly, you're singing my song here. When I started my business, I used to have one of my freebies was bootstrapping your business, starting with no capital, starting with a little capital, and just working out how you can get to the next step with minimal investment, because a lot of people start their businesses and they don't have a lot of investment. People who do start their business and they have investment, it's a big problem. The other thing I call that is the new shiny thing syndrome. Just because something comes along and it's bright and shiny and it looks fantastic doesn't mean it's the right thing for your business. And how much time are you going to spend trying to work out how to bring that into your business versus working on what you're already doing and making that better and making that work? So just to summarize it a little, I think it's about looking at where you're at, what your next logical step is, and how are you going to do that without throwing a heap of time, energy, effort, money into it. Or maybe you do need to spend a whole heap of time, energy, effort, and money. But are you making that as an informed decision, or are you just making that as a decision because you don't know what else you're going to do? So bootstrapping is really, really important. And even when your business gets really big, you should still be using that principle, because it's everything you can save going out is money that goes straight to your bottom line. And if it's going straight to your bottom line, it's going back into either business improvement, or honestly, you can pay yourself. Some of us get paid very little out of our businesses to start with, and you can start getting that money back out of it. So it's important stuff. So where does that then lead us into? We've got the bootstrapping going. We've worked out what we want to spend. We worked out what energy we want to put into it. What else? Where does that take us then?
I think the next big thing, I always call it authenticity, and I think people just look at that as being honest or being truthful, but I see it as this much broader topic of not just being honest and being yourself, but also it goes hand in hand with not copying what you see others doing. And sometimes you see someone and they're successful and you say, I just have to copy their formula. And you're leaving out the fact that that's them being authentic. And instead of maybe that's authentic for you, maybe it's not. Also, there's all these elements of maybe they just got started earlier than you and were doing it longer. Maybe there's stuff going on behind the scenes. And so when you copy somebody else's jargon or their quotes or sort of like their style and these type of things, you're really not maximizing who you are. And I think that over the course of your life, you're going to build up all these random skills that don't seem to make any difference. That each one of them, you worked some high school job, or you worked a part-time job here or there, or maybe you did something on the side, or you have some hobbies these are all going to add up in such a way where you will learn maybe the customer experience, you'll learn how to sell, or you'll learn, like, as you've been sold to, you'll be able to observe what caught your eye. And I think you're the best judge of how all this will work in your business. So you take your own experience, you build all of this stuff together, all the things you've learned in life, all the experiences, the interactions you've had. And I think that's what's really being authentic, more so than just telling the truth.
I absolutely adore that. And there's a couple of things I want to ask about that. So when you're saying, don't copy other people, do you find that sometimes you'll see someone doing something, you think, I think I could use that and I'm going to copy it, because you don't know how to start doing it. So if you go and copy someone else and then start to bring your own flavor to it and go, oh, that didn't quite work, I'm going to transfer it to this and I'm going to do this and transform the way I'm doing it. Is that a valid way of starting?
Yeah, I think definitely seeing what others are doing and maybe some tactics and strategies and saying, I want to try that out and dipping your toes into it. It's just the whole, when you copy it verbatim, you say, I'm going to use these, this exact way on the opt-ins. You're going to use this sort of language because that's what they use and they say that's what's successful. It's one of those things where, yeah, maybe you're going to copy a strategy or copy the tactic, but don't just copy it wholesale is really what it's getting at.
Okay, now you said something there that really just sort of hit me, and it was like, don't just use the wording on the opt-ins because that's what they're using and they say that works. I help businesses get their businesses online. I help them set up their lead marketing and their lead capture and all of that. And the thing that I find is they're like, I want to use this exact process and I want my forms to look just like this and I want the process to go this way. And here are the words because we're going to use those words. And it's like, but that's not your business. That doesn't sound like your business. You've just taken something that you've developed a lot of time around the credentials and who you are and the feel of who you are, and you're now taking it and you're really, really salesy and it's really, really hard and it's really, it's just not who you are. By all means, and this is what I say to them, by all means, what they're doing is right, but we need to morph this to suit you, to suit your words, to suit your personality, your business's personality. Don't just use that form wholesale because it's not going to work for you.
Right.
Well, all right. So how do you have any tips for how someone can work out what their style is and how they can work out to bring what it is they are to the table?
Well, I think everyone's going to have their taste. So if we're coming around to your brand identity, there's going to be colors that stand out better to you. Maybe the way logos look, something draws you in. I sort of have this view that we sort of project onto the world our own preferences. So if I do something, I'm assuming that when you do it, you're doing it from the same motivations as me. And I think we tend to attract audiences that have a similar style to us. So depending on whatever your personality is and how you reflect that in your business, you're going to find people that line up with that. So those people who just over the top and maybe like to use profanity and get in your face and be edgy, there's definitely a market for that. But there's a market if you're soft-spoken, if you don't want to be on the camera, there's all these things where you can say, this is what I'm used to. This is who I naturally am. And I can set up my brand so that it's a reflection of that. So I don't have to say, well, flat icons are the thing, or they're no longer the thing. So you have to change your business. I mean, there's companies that have been around for decades that have just made modest tweaks to their brand image over time. So I think that's really the key there, is just build it almost for yourself, and then obviously get feedback from the market if you're totally missing the mark. But just try to build the company or the brand that you would want to be following. You're building it to your tastes, and you will find people that line up with that.
So I also then want to just bring into that is that's when you've also then got to go back to your bootstrapping mentality. Don't just sit there and say, okay, this is me and this is what I do, and do that forever, because your business is going to grow. You're going to grow. The market will change around you. So you do need to take all of that into consideration, but then go back to your bootstrapping and say, well, what's the next step? How do I keep my growth up? One of the podcasts or the inspirations I put up recently is about, if you're not growing, you are stagnating. Even if your business itself isn't stagnating and it's still the same, because everything around you is moving, you are actually going to be stagnating in the long term. So it's really important, once you find your authenticity and your voice and all of that, that you then continually get that feedback from your market as to where you need to be next, where you want to be, what you want to be doing. So
Exactly. And that's where that Kaizen principle comes in. It's basically plan, do, check, and adjust. So you don't just do forever. You make your plan, you start working towards it, and then you see what's working, what's not. You see where these minor improvements are so that over time, I mean, I'll look back at my website from 6 months ago and I'm kind of embarrassed at it. I think, I hope nobody finds an archived copy of that because it was pretty bad. And then 6 months from now, I'll be saying the exact same thing. Or why was I using those colors or that font, or something about it will just really be off-putting. But it is, you have to bring those Kaizen and Slide Edge principles into it. So you find who you are, but you do continue to improve.
Absolutely. That's great. That's great advice for people. Now, I think the next thing here is structure, and how does that tie into those other two principles?
Well, I think with bootstrapping, it's more about keeping you from chasing fads, following the hype, all those type of things, and also just really analyzing everything that comes in and out. Is this necessary for me? And then the authenticity is finding your actual unique voice. And then from there, I think what businesses really lack is structure. So structure can be everything from systems and processes for how you do things so that you can replicate it easily and it'll be a consistent output. You don't have to keep a lot of stuff in your head. You actually have these things out so that you don't have to think about them all the time. There's less decision fatigue. So structure can be something about a format. Like for us, we work a lot with blogs. So we have a content structure. We call it the blog post formula. And it's about creating this structure so that users know kind of what they're going to get. And it takes a lot of the guesswork out when you're creating a piece of content or anything of that nature. Like when we're building a new website, we have all these sort of this method that we use to go through it. So it can be anything. If you're doing audio or video, the structure can be your outline, the way you present your information. Maybe there's something you do at the beginning and end every time, just something that brings a little bit more consistency, and it just makes it a lot better output.
So again, there's two things there that I picked up on. One is the consistency. Well, first of all, let's talk about the consistency. The consistency is making it easier for you to create your content because it's always got the same format. So you know that when you come in to write a blog post, it's going to have this, it's going to have this, it's going to have this. Let's say it's got 3 parts. And that's what you need to put in there to get your content. The other side of that, which actually has far-reaching benefits, is that when your clients come to you and start reading your content, they're going to know what to expect and they're going to know where to look in particular articles or pages to get the information they need out of it. And they just get used to that, and that's what it just works. It really just works. But it's not just about the structure of your content and how you build your websites. It's also about the structure of your business and your day and your tasks, isn't it?
Yeah, definitely. A lot of it goes into sort of personal productivity with how you structure your day and how you get things done, how you track things. It's really, like I said, there's decision fatigue will build up. If you have to remember to do something and if you have to check this was written down there and this was in some other tool over there, it really adds up and you're not giving the best part of your business the best of yourself because you're stuck just with this minutia, this paper shuffling, checking lists off, looking for things that you've missed. There were so many times when I would get a piece of content done and I would realize I had forgot to put an opt-in in, or something that I was supposed to do on every single blog post was missing. And then you realize that sometimes, and you have to go back and double check all your work to see, did I forget something here or there? And that's what a lot of the bringing systems and structure to it is. Whenever I put out a piece of content, I don't ever have to think, did I remember to do this? Because the way I have it set up to implement it, there's all these check marks along the way where this has to be done, this has to be done in order to move to the next step. So it's the same thing with how you structure your day, making sure you get the right things done to move forward.
So that also then comes down to being able to build your teams around that, because if you have that structure in place and you have those checklists in place and the tools have the information where it needs to be at that point in time, building a team to help you run that part of your business is so much easier. Not only does it let them get on and do what you need them to do, it gives you something that if something starts to fail, you can go back and say, well, why are you not doing this step? Because it'll always come back to they're not doing a step, or they're just sort of bashing through things. And it's not necessarily that, because a lot of people think, oh, they're just terrible and they're lazy and they don't follow process. Yeah, maybe. But sometimes it is also that they don't know how to do it, or the tool is no longer working, the information wasn't there, and I just skipped it because I needed to get the job out because we have a time constraint on it. So that then comes back to your Kaizen principle of plan, do, check, adjust. Like, where in that process is that failing? So I really love the whole idea of what you're suggesting here. Now,
Yeah.
sorry, go on.
No, I like to take responsibility. If I've passed off a task to somebody and they fail, I tend to think, did I not give them good instructions, or did I not follow up in a good way? It's sort of like, I need a basic understanding. I don't have to be good at everything, but I need a basic understanding before I can hand that off to someone else. Or I might not know if their work is good. If I'm hiring a writer, but I don't know what good writing looks like, they might give me something that is not very good at all. And I just look at it and say, well, it looks fine, and put it out there. So I think that's a big part of the whole, having the process, so that I have a basic understanding, so that then I can give good instruction to somebody.
Look, and I love that as well. Like I said, you're singing my song. You don't have to be an expert, but you do need to understand the process that things go through and what things should look like. What does success look like for you? And that's success in a piece of writing, it's success in how a graphic sits with you, how people respond to newsletters that you're sending out. Know what it is, so that when your team does it, you can tell that they're being successful and not just that they're doing a series of steps on a page, basically. Now, can you tell us, I mean, I'm just looking here at your bio, and you had a successful real estate business that you walked away from, and now you're running a part-time business. Is that right?
Well, I mean, I consider it part-time in the sense, the amount of time that it takes versus what I was spending before. But yeah, it's full-time more or less, but it's not a full-time hours. So yeah, we went on a vacation, and then I just never came back. And I was like, I need to do this online. I need to figure out something, because, once you get a break from, even if it's almost like the golden handcuffs, where you've built something really good and you think, I'm chained to it. It's not very good unless I'm actively involved in it. So I've got to figure out something where I can sort of replicate myself, and so I can get the same amount of success without having to spend the same amount of time as I was.
Excellent. All right, and that's why you walked away, because you came back off of holidays. That sounds like a story I went through about 30 years ago. I went on holidays and came back and went, I don't want to go back to work.
Mm-hmm.
I want to go back to doing what I was doing, because that sucked severely. So what were the challenges that you experienced in doing that changeover? I mean, obviously you found all of these principles and the things that were missing when we came online, but what were the challenges that you found?
I think the biggest challenge for me was finding good information, because there's so much free information out there. And many times people will package information and say, I have the missing secret that you need. And you find that it's just rehashing what everybody else is saying. And I began to decipher that this person, it feels like they're not speaking from experience. It feels like they're just repeating what everybody else says. And I started to hone in on, I can tell when someone's just telling me that they know about something versus they have done something. And so that's when I started to, with the Digital Sharecropper, it went through a couple iterations, but I realized what people need is not the information, because it's all out there. They need to be able to have a template that, how do I see through the hype or the marketing and find out what strategies actually work, so I can go to a source and I can trust that if they're putting it out there, not only have they done it themselves, but it does work. So that's really the angle I've been trying to take with everything.
Okay, yes, that was something I found as well. I mean, I started doing this back in 2007, so not as early as some, but still quite early in the whole process. And oh my goodness, it was the Wild West back then. And I now go through things. I'm like, this one's telling me that they know how to increase my leads. And I go and look at it and I'm like, oh yeah, this is just the same stuff I've seen rehashed time and time and time again. And it's probably private label rights stuff that they've purchased and they've put up a website for. And it's just an automation. It's a click thing, buy it, you pay $7, they get 30% of the income, and it goes through. But it's the same stuff. There's nothing new, there's nothing innovative, and sometimes it's getting dated, so it's actually it no longer works, not with the current systems of things. So that's a really important thing. Digital Sharecropper. Now, when I hear that, that sounds like you're doing online share training. Are you?
No, it actually comes from back in the early days of our country. There was issues with who could own land and who couldn't. And so what would happen is you'd have these tenant farmer relationships where somebody would work the land and they would get a portion of the profits. And it kind of struck home with me because I grew up in a farm town and a lot of my first jobs were working on farms. And so it was the same thing. It's like I actually got to take a share in the profits by working this land. And so I think online, a lot of what we do is we're taking advantage of these platforms that have hundreds of millions or even billions of users, and we didn't have to do anything but maybe set up an account, provide a little bit of information. And that's kind of what I see is more of like we're sharing in the profits for working this land online.
Fabulous. Okay, that makes a lot of sense. Now, so what is it you do with people?
Well, I have other businesses besides Digital Sharecropper, and that's where I sort of report what's working on my other online businesses. And then I do have one-on-one sessions where I work with people and I try to help them figure out what's blocking them in their business from moving on, or people who are kind of stuck in the mud of what actually works. I've been spinning my wheels a bunch and I'm not sure. Maybe I've built one of these Frankenstein websites with 50 different pieces of technology and it's just not working for me. So we try to work forward in that sense. And then from what I learned from all this, I try to package it either into new content or, for instance, right now I'm working on a video course teaching people how to create better content using that structure. And so I sort of have a few things going on, and the Digital Sharecropper is where I report what's going on, and I use that as sort of a testing ground to gather new ideas and put out information.
Okay, and people can find out more about that at digitalsharecropper.com.
Yes.
Excellent. And is that the best way to get in touch with you if people want to know more about what you're doing?
Yeah, everything I have is on there.
Excellent. Well, I will put all of that into the show notes, guys. So do go and visit Patrick on your way through. It's always important to support the people who come on and share their information with us. Sorry, I just had a thought, and now it's never ever have original thoughts while you're doing interviews, giving talks. It takes you right out of your mindset. What's the one thing you'd like people to take away from our conversation today?
I think with everything, it starts with knowing yourself. So obviously bootstrapping, authenticity, structure, those are important, but it all starts at the beginning of knowing yourself. You know what your skills are, where you're lacking and you need to learn. You also know your temperament, how much risk tolerance you have. And I think that's, if you take some self-reflection at the beginning, you'll be less likely to fall into some of these common traps that people have.
Awesome. That is so great. So let's just sort of summarize a little. Get to know yourself, know what is authentic for yourself. And when you start building your business, don't go out to build a mansion. Start with putting a slab down or some foundations down that you're going to put a wood floor on and build from there. Bootstrap yourself up, do it bit by bit and get those each step perfect. Well, as close to perfect as you can. You're not going to get it perfect. You're going to go back and look at it and go, I could have done that so much better. Trust me, it happens. Look, thank you so much for spending the time with us today. I really do appreciate it. I'm just going to invite people to come across and join me on my locals community, askcharlyleetham.locals.com. Being a business owner can be tough. Being a business owner can get lonely, especially when we're working remotely. And I've lost my notes here. It also can be frustrating. That's why I started the locals community. It's a community for business owners that could be a bit like the old water cooler of old. It's not just about me sharing information. If you become a supporter, which is only $2 US a month, and that allows me to keep creating content like this, creating new content, doing new things for you guys, You can get to interact with me. You'll be able to offer advice. You'll be able to ask for advice. We can gain inspiration and provide inspiration. What I really want it to be is that place where business owners can get, where we used to be able to go and sit down in the coffee shop and catch up with everyone else around us, or we'd stop at the water cooler and get a glass of water and have a chat to like the people in the office. We don't get to do that anymore. That's why I've done this. So come and join me at askcharlyleetham.locals.com. I also would like to remind everyone to like and share this video, subscribe to the channel so you know when I do drop more content. And Patrick, I'd really like to thank you for your time today. It's been wonderful. You've shared some great information. I will have all the notes down below. And if you've got, do you have anything more you want to add before we sign off for today?
No, that's it. It's been a pleasure. Thanks.
No, look, thank you so much. I've really enjoyed it. Until next time, guys, I'll see you later.